Who's starting? I guess I'll start. Hey,
We never discussed that.
Who's going to start the show today? Hi, good to see everybody. A few of us are home. A few of us are traveling today, so we'll have to cut it a little short. I think Tara and Joe will have to cut it a little short this morning, but Michelle and I will finish up the show with everybody here. It's so good to see everybody on this beautiful Saturday morning here in the Northeast. The sun is shining. It's supposed to be very warm today. I am back from Arizona, where it was very, very, very warm. And now I'm obsessed with Sedona, Arizona. If anybody's ever been there, drop it in the chat. But I am ready to move to Sedona. It's so stunning. Have you guys ever been?
No, my dad was obsessed with Arizona. I've never been there.
I've been. My mom's family lives around Phoenix, I think. They love it.
Yeah, Phoenix was whatever, take it or leave it. But we went up to the Grand Canyon, which was the most stunning. I can't even describe it. No photographs describe what I saw. And Sedona was just magical. It was just this incredible kind of mystical place. I don't know how to describe it other than we stumbled upon a bunch of shaman as we were thinking a little bit.
Not the shaman, not the January 6th.
Right. No, not that guy.
You know what?
That asshole.
For all I know, with what they were dropping, it could have been that guy. Who knows? But
so I've been to Phoenix and Arizona a few times, and two funny stories. So one of them was back when I was still a Capitol Hill staffer. I was out there for a rally for my Border Patrol agents because one of them was in prison, federal prison in Phoenix. And so it was my birthday, and I decided I'm driving to the Grand Canyon because why not? And it's like a 3-hour drive one way from Phoenix to South Rim, but I didn't care. And I did it in one day, and it was an awesome way to spend my birthday. I think it was 2007. And my good friend was there, and we were singing, blasting songs, like On the Road Again and all that the whole way. It's a great road trip. And you go through Sedona on your way. So that's kind of how that was the experience. I haven't spent time there, but everyone I know loves it. And wasn't there an episode of Succession? Isn't that where Connor lived? Didn't he live in Sedona or somewhere?
New Mexico.
Oh, it was New Mexico. All right, never mind. Cancel that part. And then the other funny story is when a couple of years ago, I was speaking at an event in Las Vegas, and my mom had never been. She had never been to Vegas, and she'd never been to the Grand Canyon. So I said, Mom, come with me. So we went. We also got into a really big fight with this bitch on the Southwest flight, because you know how you can pick seats and stuff. And it was a whole thing. And she was the most obnoxious person ever. We almost got thrown off the flight because which was ridiculous because she was the horrible person. But anyway, that's how it started. But we got to Las Vegas. Everything was awesome. And I said, Mom, we're going to the Grand Canyon. So we drove out to the Grand Canyon. My mom has a terrible, terrible fear of heights.
Oh,
deathly afraid of heights.
That's me.
So she said, fuck this. I'm going to conquer that this time. You only live once, YOLO. So we did the skywalk, the skywalk with the glass. So
was that a thing?
So it's a thing. And the only other place I've seen it was China. They show pictures, you're up in this high up in some gorge, and they have this glass thing, and you watch people freaking out because your senses think you're falling because it's clear, it's clear, it's glass. Well, they have a thing called the skywalk in at the Grand Canyon now. And my mom, she did it. She might have crawled on all fours, but she did it, and I was so proud of her. And we have awesome pictures of my mom and I. I'm not afraid of anything. I've jumped out of airplanes, but I was like, Mom, let's go. And she was like, I'm doing it. And sure as shit, she did it. And we have pictures of us yay.
Tara, you have to send us pictures.
I should. I'll see if I can grab one, and we could put it up maybe before the show ends. But yeah, and then and then we hike to the top of one of the little rock things where you can see, and she sat up there with God's view, you were talking about, Julie. I was so proud of her. So Grand Canyon is breathtaking.
I have to say, I've seen pictures of it, and I've always been yeah, whatever, big rock, big hole in the middle of the desert. But until you actually see it in person, and pictures don't do it justice, photographs just don't do it justice, and it's just magical. I don't know how to describe it. And we did exactly what we did. We drove, although we did a tour. So we were in the back of a van. That was kind of
oh God, shoot me.
That was, it was like a who's the boss sign thing. back to my Tony Danza thing. But so we drove to the Grand Canyon, and then on the way back drove to Sedona. And it's just like, I have to say, as somebody from the Northeast who's kind of
we all are.
We don't have anything like that here.
No,
we don't have
anything like that here. And it just reminds you how absolutely stunning this country is, how diverse this country is, not just diverse in terms of population, but diverse in terms of just geography. And it makes you really humble. And then you think about what the hell this guy is doing to our country, our beautiful, beautiful country. And it makes me even more depressed, because I'll tell you, we went to the Phoenix Suns game also while we were out there, because I was with my little 12-year-old who insisted that we go to a Phoenix Suns game. And
that was smart. Good for him.
Yeah. And it was a great game. They won by 1 point. It was amazing.
Ooh.
But we also just, you see people there who are clearly the people who make the whole place run. And they're probably not talented. And they're wonderful people, and they're there to work hard. And you think about the fact that if this guy has his way, they will be locked up and deported. Yeah. And the economy of Arizona will collapse because it runs on that.
And Texas and New Mexico. I mean, listen, I'm even living in New York. I worked in restaurants for many, many years when I was still a struggling artist. And I would say the majority of the people I worked with in restaurants were immigrants, and they're just here to try to make some money and send some money back home and find a better life and have their kids have a better opportunity than they did. And they're some of the nicest, most hardworking people I have ever worked with, who also make a fraction of what an American would make doing the same job. And I know that that's like, the point of a lot of these people, taking advantage, but it really is true. I mean, the hardest working people, honestly.
Well, Americans don't want to do those jobs. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, you want to stand in 110-degree heat and mow the lawn of some hotel resort? Like, I don't think so.
Right.
And not only that, it's not only those folks, it's also, like, just speaking of the Grand Canyon, all the people in the national parks and the Forestry Service. And, like, people are concerned that because they haven't really felt it yet because we're not in the traveling season, but like when tourist season comes and there's garbage and the parks aren't kept up, or you don't have park rangers, you can thank Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, and these are the people who are the caretakers of those places we hold so dear, right? Like, to Julie's point, I've never seen the Grand Canyon. I will say that the first time I ever saw the Rocky Mountains, I cried because I was so humbled by it, just the sheer magnitude of it. Like, again, the East Coast, everything's rounded. You know what I mean? Like, I still cry when I see the Palisades. My kids will tell you, and they'll roll their eyes. Yeah. Every time I go over the George Washington Bridge, I'll say, "Look at the Palisades! This is a marvel. It's absolutely beautiful." But the caretakers of the Grand Canyon, the caretakers of Acadia National Park, of Yellowstone, the caretakers of these jewels of our country have been decimated to the point where it's exactly what Tara said. There's going to be garbage. There's going to be, there's crowds that, like, they can't handle, and they're going to be overwhelmed and overworked. And it's like, these are the things we're supposed to value. And Donald Trump doesn't give a shit. He would sell off all that land, pave it over, turning into a parking lot. He would turn the Grand Canyon into the world's largest fucking hot tub if he could. He doesn't give a shit. And like that, and when we've seen this with him before, he did this the last time around, or, you know what I mean? He just doesn't care. He's saying we don't need Canadian lumber. And I saw we had some people from Canada here because we have plenty of trees that we can just cut down, like, as if they grow back tomorrow. But he's talking about deforesting our parks.
Well, and also, like, the trees, I mean, even if we were to do that, the trees the lumber that they use in Canada is much harder and is better to be, to build houses and things like that. The stuff that we have here, there's only 2 places in the country that have the same, even remotely close to the same hardness as that lumber. And it's not as sturdy, and it's not as quality, and there's not very much of it. So they can try to do all the things, but there's a reason that we take our lumber from Canada. And it's because it helps our buildings to literally stand up.
Right. Can we talk about something else that they're dismantling that we all hold dear, that no other president has ever thought to fucking touch? Sorry, Julie's dad. JD Vance is now in charge of the Smithsonian. Like, the fucking Smithsonian.
I didn't know. I know that they were messing with it, but I didn't.
No. Yeah. Yesterday, he announced, in addition to JD Vance going to Greenland and insulting our Danish allies, if anybody here.
Yes.
Mark.
We're talking about that.
I listened to that live and was cursing in the car at him. Like, I was like,
madness.
Yeah. And Joe, you made a really good point where he, on social media, which my husband pointed out to me because he's a big JoJo from Jers fan, but he loved.
as we all are.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he was cracking up. And I'm like, what are you laughing at? He's like, did you see what Joe posted? And you were so right. Because this idiot goes to Greenland and tells them that Denmark's not doing a good job protecting them and their national security. And Joe made the point, like, what is he talking about? They haven't been invaded since 1944. Which is so great. Joe has this ability to break through the bullshit so well because while the rest of us are sitting here being like, oh, let's. You're like, what is he like? Not in our time, not in our time. Has Greenland been invaded?
I can just picturing all the Greenlanders going like, "Are we not safe, y'all? Don't you? Hey, Bjork, are we not Bjork's Icelandic, but whatever, whatever."
Yeah.
Bjork.
It's a cold, beautiful place. Yes, same difference, right? But actually, no, because that's the problem here. We're talking about a sovereign country that they don't want this. And the language that he was using was, it was infuriating. Oh, well, because a bunch of reporters asked him, so are you preparing plans to invade Greenland? He never said no. I listened very carefully. He kept obfuscating and talking around it. And he was like, well, we hope it never gets to that. But we hope that in partnership, the people of Greenland will voluntarily come to their senses, basically.
Who would want to be a part of this shit show right now?
Right.
In addition to just not wanting to give up your independence and, be as a sovereign country, but like, who would want to be a part of this shit show now?
Well,
we don't have public
Trump's
health.
just gonna grab them by their fjords or some shit. You know what I mean?
We're gonna find out whether they have those plans or not on Signal any minute, because obviously, or Pete Hegseth's wife's gonna tell him, because I don't know if you guys saw this breaking overnight. The Wall Street Journal has a front page story. I don't know if it's front page in the print paper, but it is front page on their website. That Pete Hegseth insisted that his wife, Jen Hegseth, who was the former producer of Fox and Friends, I know her. So just to clarify her qualifications to be in these rooms, has sat in on, we lost Tara, but has sat in on briefings with the defense secretary, or whatever their equivalent is in the United Kingdom, where they're talking about Ukrainian war plans.
Oh, Jesus.
Like stuff that is so incredibly
Inappropriate.
Privileged and classified that most staff would not be allowed to sit in on, but Pete's wife, Jen, is sitting in on them.
The former Fox News producer that he cheated on his second wife.
But her emails.
And did you see Pete Hegseth? One of the, oh gosh, was it like an inspector general thing? It was a role like that. One of the people that he fired essentially when they came in, he has now hired his little brother to replace one of these roles.
His brother is also sitting in these meetings, but apparently she sat in on those meetings. She sat in on meetings on the sidelines of the NATO conference last month, whatever it was. And so, like, the fact that they're not taking this seriously, and it's a total grift, and it's a nepotism grift. I mean, Pete Hegseth, for better or worse, as the Secretary of Defense, the United States Senate abdicated its responsibility and confirmed him by one vote. So fine.
And Joni Ernst.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Joni Ernst.
How did she live with herself?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? He's there. He's allowed to see all the stuff, as much as we may not like it. But who the hell allowed his wife to sit in on it? And this is not a criticism of Jen Hegseth. It is a criticism of the fact that if I were in that job, my husband would not be allowed to sit in there, should not be allowed to sit in there. If he had that job, I should not be allowed to sit there.
No.
Like, what the hell qualifies you, because you happen to share a bed with somebody, to sit on briefings about the matters of war? And by the way, I just want to show everybody, I'm wearing my Kiev Independent sweatshirt,
Yay.
which I got from the wonderful online newspaper, the Kyiv Independent, which actually has the best reporting on the war
Yes.
going on over there. So I wanted to throw them a few bucks. If anybody wants to go on their website, it is actually an incredible
yeah.
sweatshirt. But that's who these people are.
Well,
I mean,
Julie, that's the culture. I mean, what people often forget, I don't, because I mean, none of us do because we're all dialed in. Donald Trump was showing classified, materials to a book, an author, like a biographer,
And the Russians.
Right, and the Russians, of course, and like we forget that he was keeping boxes of classified national security. I don't know what their classification, what the national security information in his fucking chandelier shitter. So the culture is this like, who cares about our classified, schmassified? Like they don't care. And what I was writing about the other day was, we're all on the same damn roller coaster. So if you guys are high-fiving over all of this shit where they're dismantling the track in front of us, you're going to crash into the ground too. It's not like you're just going to own the libs by imperiling our national security. You're strapped in too. So you're on the ride. I don't understand why they're like, yeah, high five, this makes America great. Actually, this shows you how coordinated everybody is. It's like, no, you dipshits. This was a completely reckless, potentially catastrophic thing that no one is taking seriously. And if anybody's going to take the fall for it, it's going to be Mike Walls, because they gotta, maybe somebody's going to take the fall for it, but there's no accountability. They all lied to Congress when they were up there. Completely, like it's, and then there's been no consequences, none.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Like I was listening to Dan Abrams yesterday on Sirius XM, and I have my issues with Dan, but on issues of national security and like, a lot of legal stuff, he's usually pretty right. And his audience, like he was taking calls and he was incensed about what's going on and about the hypocrisy of how it's being covered. Right. So the right-wing media, all the butthurt emails people, they're all like, what's the big deal? Were there war plans? Was it classified? And it's like, shut the fuck up, you people. Sorry, Julie's dad. But these people shut up. Okay. Like they have no idea the implications of this or what's classified or what's sensitive or why it matters. They don't care. They're just parroting the talking points coming out of Fox News and the right-wing ecosystem. And a guy called in and he literally got into an argument with Dan Abrams about the same thing. Like, so what? This happened. It was a mistake. So what do you want? The whole cabinet to be fired and for them to be dragged in front of a firing squad and executed. And Dan was like, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, how do you go from that to this? Like demanding accountability. At least acknowledge that it was a mistake. He's like, acknowledge first that it was a massive F up. And then we can talk about what level of accountability. He goes, what are you talking about execution? He goes, well, and he made every excuse. He could not follow the basic argument that it was hypocritical if you were upset about Hillary Clinton and her server, which was nowhere near the same level of problematic stuff as this. Did what she do? Was her thing wrong? Yes. Okay, fine. But it wasn't at this level. She wasn't talking about war plans. Okay, it was not. And they determined that. Should she have done it? No. This is at a whole different level. So if you were screaming bloody murder and lock her up for that, but can't see this, you're a hypocrite.
Well, let me go a step further, because first of all, I was sitting next to Pete Hegseth very often on the Fox News couch as he was screaming about locking her up.
Yes.
So, like the hypocrisy is, to me, so precious, because literally I'm sitting here and next to me, and I'm sure if somebody wanted to pull up clips, we probably could, is Pete Hegseth screaming about lock her up. But here's the problem these people don't realize. It's not just about this one incident. What this is about is the fact that our allies, not just our adversaries, but our allies, thank you for throwing that up. That is the front page of the Wall Street Journal right now. Okay. I mean, it's crazy. So those foreign military leaders that are sitting in these classified briefings, they're not sharing classified information with us anymore, because they don't want to have Pete Hegseth or any of these other idiots or his wife or anybody on that Signal chat, Tulsi Gabbard, Mike Waltz, John Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA. All of these people cannot be trusted. And they know that because they're careless enough to throw this stuff up on Signal chats, which means that if you're the, I don't know, the head of MI6 in Great Britain, or that person's counterpart in France, or in the Five Eyes in Canada. To our Canadian friends, I saw what you wrote about the fact that your prime minister yesterday said that our alliance is over. It is heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
I mean,
I just want you to understand that as Americans, we are heartbroken because you are like family to us and we love you and we are heartbroken.
Yeah.
But if you're the Canadians or the Australians or the New Zealanders, do you ever in your worst nightmare now share any intelligence with this country, knowing that your sources and methods may be compromised by these morons who put things on Signal and they say, no big deal, it's impenetrable? You don't think the Russians have figured out a way to break into your private phone?
Are you kidding me?
And
yeah.
Doing shots of vodka at the GRU headquarters right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Are you kidding?
And that was Israeli intelligence that Pete shared. That was Israeli intelligence that he shared, and Israeli assets on the ground that he is now imperiled.
Right. So you think the Mossad, you think as much as Netanyahu and Trump love each other, you think that the head of the Mossad, who's a totally independent person from all those people, is ever going to share anything with this country anymore?
No.
So all these yahoos, or as Joe always says, what is it, Joe? Ma and Pa
MAGA.
who are sitting here high-fiving each other, thinking, oh yeah, we own the libs. Now they're all upset about this. My friends, the next time there's a 9/11, there's not going to be a memo that says bin Laden determined to attack in the United States, because nobody's going to share that intelligence with us. And we can't go it alone, especially now that we're hollowing out our own intelligence services, because God forbid, if you're a woman or you're Black or you're Muslim or you're anything that's not a white man, suddenly you're a DEI hire. Who the hell do you think is sitting there in Afghanistan? White men like Pete Hegseth?
Exactly.
Yeah. And
true. That's so true. I mean, in my Substack this week, I wrote, and also it was my Set Mayor sound off for Don Lemon. I said, the real DEI hires are these people who didn't earn it. That's who this whole thing is. Those are the people who should be fired, who are incompetent, who are lesser than, who are mediocre, who have failed up, and they want to blame people of color and women. Get the fuck out of here. And this whole thing is insane. You brought up the Smithsonian. Like, they're coming for the African American History Museum.
Yes, they are.
And
yes, they are.
Nuts. Anderson Cooper did a segment on it last night with what's his name, who runs that over there. I forget his name now, but he was talking about how, like, they're over here trying to say that, oh, there's radical history of that, radical agenda history about what's going on there. We're going to fix that. Fix it. The American history is what it is.
Yeah, no. They mean whitewash. That's what they mean. They mean whitewash.
They are trying to whitewash history. So I said to Marcel, I'm like, I wonder what would happen if they literally tried to like enter the Black History Museum, which is a beautiful building. I don't know if you guys have ever been inside. If you get a chance to go, it's amazing. I believe it was like George W. Bush was one of the first people to put money down for it when they were raising money, right?
It's a beautiful building.
It is, and the inside is just an unbelievable homage to the history, both the good and the painful history that is real. And I'm sorry if white men in America can't face the fact that your ancestors who were here enslaved people who looked like me. Or my husband, actually, my family doesn't have that history here. They were in Guatemala, actually, was where I get my skin color from, but they were enslaved there too. But my husband's family, he's doing a family tree right now because he's turning 50 on Wednesday and we're getting ready to travel. But he's doing a family history, and he just talked to his cousin yesterday. They actually have like the back to where, like, who bought them. Like the receipt of who bought his family in North Carolina. Okay. So I'm sorry if people are upset about that, but that fucking happened. We enslaved people. Yeah. And if you are upset about that, too bad. Yeah. How about you say, oh my God, let's make sure that never happens again, because this country has always been about a more perfect union. We are a work in progress. Yeah. Are we the greatest country in the world? Well, we were, but we have a checkered past. Acknowledge it. Stop stop trying to erase that. Why? It's just it's infuriating. So I wonder if there would be Black folks that would like link arms around that building and dare them to come through them to come into it.
Oh, I think 100%, but I think, Tara, to your point, I think that I hope that they would, and I hope that lots of allies would stand with them.
I hope
But
it's not
to
just
your
Black
point, the goal here is to erase it so that they can do it again, right? You were doomed to repeat the history and this, like, people say I'm being histrionic or hyperbolic when I say this is Orwellian, but this is a quote from 1984. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And that process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. We have seen this with names of bases, and he's going to be bringing those statues of,
They're going to put Robert E. Lee back in Richmond.
Yep. And so, and like, again, the goal here is to erase the history so that they can repeat it. That is exactly what they're trying to do. And they're doing it at such a breakneck pace, it's almost unfathomable. Because you would think, although they've been biting at this apple for a long time, you would think that people would stand up and be shocked. But people are like, oh, no, that's fine. And then all of a sudden it happens. That's where we're at right now.
Yes.
Like, they are going to come for the people in the content of that museum. They are going to put statues of him up all over the place. And we have to link arms, Tara. You're 100% right. We have to stand
I'd be
up.
the first person to stand there and just to and even contemplate that.
Right.
To even contemplate it. You know, this week I was down at UVA with Jim Acosta, and a student asked us what happens if it gets to the point where, like, some of these cases go to the Supreme Court and Trump decides to defy the Supreme Court case, an order. And Jim Acosta looked at each other and we kind of were like, we don't know. This is uncharted territory, but short of a violent, taking up arms and saying no, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. We better never get to that point. People, like, to your point, Joe, it is not hyperbolic. Michelle says all the time, lack of imagination is more dangerous than anything.
And this has already happened, right? I mean, Nixon ordered the National Guard to shoot students at Kent State.
That's right.
happened.
Yeah.
People
That's
died.
right.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Everybody just went back to their lives, and then, like,
He got reelected.
He got reelected, and the children of the 60s just went and lived their lives, and there was no consequence. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, even with Nixon and Watergate, there was no consequence. And that really set a precedent for now, where we are now. And it's just over and over and over and over again that there's no accountability. And because that's not what America does. We just, the nation needs to heal. We just need to move on.
So to your point, there's a troll here, SP Riggs, and we're going to address this right now. He said, get over it. Slavery was 150 years ago. Blacks today weren't harmed directly, and whites today didn't harm you directly. Stop with the identity politicals.
Oh, Jesus.
Learn how to spell. For votes, gaslighting. Okay.
Oh, shut
Nobody's canceling museums.
Shite.
Okay. Let me tell you something right now. All right. Just because what happened today, the people who are alive today didn't enslave people 200 years ago or 400 years ago, does not mean that the byproduct of what happened there still isn't happening. And last time I checked, your grandmother or your parents were alive when Black folks and Black women even did not have the right to vote. Jim Crow laws and the unequal ability to vote, poll taxes, literacy tests, all of those things. Maybe you didn't learn about the civil rights movement, but that didn't happen until 1964. 1964. So fuck off with this whole thing about, nothing happened today. Nobody's a victim. Have you ever heard of redlining? Google it. Because obviously you didn't pay attention to history.
It gets worse. And you weren't allowed to marry a Black person if you were white. At a time when
Virginia.
Loving versus Virginia, which I believe was in 67, 68.
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken. I was born in 1973. So if I'd been born 5 years earlier, I could not have my parents, both of whom are white, but if one of them was not white, could not have married the other in some parts of this country. So that happened almost
right here. Loving versus Virginia, right?
Yeah.
In Northern Virginia, you could not interracial marriage. Okay, that didn't happen. So all of this stuff, the outgrowth, the wealth gap,
Ugh,
What happened in Tulsa, Black Wall Street, and white people
Yeah.
were very upset
Yeah.
about the fact that Black people were doing very well and had their own businesses and were successful. They
Mhm.
burned it to the ground
Yep.
in 1919. And you know what they did? They tried to erase the history of what happened there. Go and Google it. They went and erased newspaper articles. They wouldn't teach it in schools to try to erase the history of what white America did to Black Wall Street in 1919. Do you know what that meant to lose all of that economic growth and investment and all of that, like all of that? You know, I mean.
And look around. Yeah, the ripples of it are not only still there,
Correct.
right? And now with all this anti-woke DEI bullshit where they're literally erasing, Black history, the history of women's accomplishments. Jackie Robinson, they had to basically force them to return the record of his military service. Again, the ripples they're turning them into waves now where they want more of this to wash over the country so that the systemic racism that's already in place becomes worse. That is exactly what they're doing. We're going backwards.
And one more thing to the guy who said they're not canceling museums. They just said that they're pulling about 900 books from the Smithsonian because they're DEI. And let me tell you what those are. A biography of Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jackie
Sonia Sotomayor.
Yeah. Jackie Robinson. Okay. These people did not get to where they are. You think Jackie Robinson played baseball only because he was Black? You think he was a DEI hire? I think Jackie Robinson played baseball because he was a really pretty effing good baseball player.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's talk about the Black
he had to go through to play baseball. Okay. People like this is why they want to erase history, because they want people to be ignorant and they want to think that it's all about, oh, we're just going to blame white America today. And, that's why they're so scared of CRT and all of this. No, it's history. It's history. You have to acknowledge what happened. No, maybe your family didn't own slaves like my family didn't. My family came through Ellis Island in the 1920s. I don't have that awful history in my family line, but a lot of people do, and that's okay. As long as you can break that generational curse, you can break those things. And then there's generational trauma that people of color have gone through, especially in the South. This is real. And so it's just like if you were trying to erase what happened to Jews in the Holocaust. That's why they want to erase it. It's all of the same ilk. And we cannot let that happen. There is a reason. Why are they coming for history? So they can repeat it. That's why.
Yep.
And I was going to say too, to Jackie Robinson and the baseball. I mean, how about all the Black players that weren't allowed to play in the Black or in the white leagues?
Yes, well, they had Negro leagues.
Whose stats and were not even counted in baseball history until recently because they weren't playing in Major League Baseball.
That's right.
And so, this is why I tell people, and I say this to everyone in my life, write things down, write everything down, write your own history down, not in a Google Doc, on a piece of paper that nobody can take from you. And if you have I live in a 900 square foot apartment in New York City. I don't have a lot of space to be, hoarding things. But when I tell you I hoard books like none other, I see books, I buy them. I probably shouldn't. I can't afford to be buying all these books, but I do because I'm like, I don't want to live in a world where I'm not allowed to read this information. And so if you can, or if go to a used bookstore, because I'm sure libraries are up next. I'm sure.
And Terry Miller says in the comments, watch them come for Indigenous people next. By the way, if this SAVE Act goes through, that they're going to be taking to the floor next week, Indigenous people may lose their ability to vote. Just think about that. Just think about that for a second, please. The people we displaced and pushed out and killed, who were here first, may not be able to participate in our democracy. I may not be able to participate in our democracy unless I hurry up and go get myself a passport, which I need to renew because my married name is the name I vote under, but it is not, I don't have a birth certificate for that.
Right.
And women, Indigenous people, Jewish people. Donald Trump said he did more from, did you guys hear him say he did more for Muslims or some gaslighting crazy shit?
It's crazy. It's just insanity. I mean, it's V for Vendetta. If anybody's ever seen that movie, anytime Michelle talks about write things down and like hoard your books, I think of that movie. Because if you've not seen it, it's dystopian, but there's, you know, parts where they have to hide basic history or books about like musicals, or if you're gay, God forbid, like it's literally, and people like the Gestapo would bust down your doors and search your house. And if you had a forbidden item, they would like take you away and put you in the gulag. It's nuts. And like we're almost at that point.
And it's been 2 months. And it's
2
been
months.
And speaking of the gulag, you guys,
no time to celebrate.
No, we're not celebrating the gulag, but we do have official coffee conversation and cat butt.
yes, hey,
Rafi has entered the chat.
hey, Rafi. So here's the gulag thing that you guys, I actually sat down to try to write a Substack newsletter about this, and I probably will over the weekend, but I just like, I'm trying to process this and I just can't. So there is a woman who is she's anti-Putin, but that's not who she is. She's a Harvard researcher, but she's a Russian national. She was just detained. She was coming back from France from
another one.
No, this is awful. She is here. She's a Harvard. She's legally here. She is a researcher at Harvard University in Cambridge. She was coming back, I think, through Logan Airport, if I'm not mistaken, maybe somewhere else in Boston. After going to a conference in France, grabbed, snatched. She's apparently in that prison in Louisiana where they send everybody who they don't like.
You know why, though?
And but wait a second, she's going to get deported back to Russia.
They're doing the Louisiana thing to keep them away from their home base, and because it's judge shopping. They're trying to find judges there that are more sympathetic.
That kills me. She has expressed strong anti-Putin sentiment. The minute she lands back in Russia, she will be sent to the gulag. Probably for the rest of her life. This is what the United States government is doing now. They are turning over legal residents who are also dissidents to Vladimir Putin, who they know full well the minute that this woman who did nothing but express support for Ukraine, again, here it is. That's why I'm actually wearing this today, because I wanted to talk about the story. All because she expressed support for Ukraine, she is going to be consigned to a life of hard labor in the gulag.
Well, don't worry, because Kristi Noem will show up in a $60,000 watch and take a picture of her behind bars.
But I mark my words, and everybody thinks I'm nuts. They're going to come for the naturalized citizens next.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Because what they're going to say is what they're saying about the green card, what Marco Rubio said about the green card holders. You didn't come to this country and get a green card so you could be critical of its policies. Well, actually, the First Amendment applies to everybody. Yeah. So says Antonin Scalia, the role model for all these people, allegedly, or so he said before he died. But the next thing is going to be you didn't get naturalized, which is a privilege and not a right, according to them.
Right.
Only to then turn on your own country. And by turning on your own country means being critical of its policies. So I was born in Moscow. I am a naturalized American citizen. I never had Russian citizenship because I left when the Soviet Union was still around. They stripped us of our Soviet citizenship, so we were stateless. But, you know, I said to my husband, one day I'll be coming back through some airport and they will say, we didn't give you naturalization when you were 7, or however old I was, 12. And you're going back in the first plane to Moscow, whereupon I too will be thrown in the gulag. So I say this because this is the dystopian nightmare that we're all living in now, right? Like, I am banned by the Russian government from setting foot there. They had a list, I think I told you guys about years ago, that they released that basically banned people for life from ever showing up there. I'm one of those people. So if I set foot there, I'm already breaking the law and immediately will be sent to prison. And that's what Donald Trump is going to do, to cower people into silence.
Yeah. Yes. And like,
this was part of Stephen Miller's, like, and here's the thing. It's like, I don't know this for sure. I feel pretty confident that Donald Trump has no idea what's going on. I think he's just there because he didn't want to go to jail and he won. And so they just hand him these executive orders and he signs them. He doesn't even know what he's signing. And so people like Stephen Miller are running the country, and Stephen Miller is in charge of our immigration policies. And he has talked about this for a long time, that he, you know, not only did he want to get rid of immigrants, but he wanted to get rid of naturalized citizens as well, because in his mind, I mean, this is his argument that, you know, if your parents were not legal citizens and you were born here, then that means you aren't either. And so get out. And so, you know, Stephen Miller is, the only thing that gives me any sort of reprieve, I was watching a documentary the other day about Nuremberg, and I was like, when the tribunals come, and they will, they're coming for Stephen Miller, they're coming for Marco Rubio, they will come for all of them.
Yep.
Let me tell you something, Michelle. You and I talked about this on our emergency Substack live the other day, and thank you to everybody who joined that, because that was great and cathartic. If I hear one more Joe Biden type Democrat show up and say we need to unite the country, Jesus, when this is all over. So this is the former guy. It's the former guy. We're not going to pay attention to him. We're going to move on. No. We tried that. And all it did was make these people stronger. There better be tribunals and there better be accountability, because before all is said and done and there's an opportunity for that accountability, many people are going to die.
Yes. My husband says this all the time. He's like, when this is all over and that there, you know, the accountability comes, he's like, I said, I hope we make it that far. You know, I mean, like we need to make sure that we do this, because there has to be we're 2 months in. We're 2 months in. Yeah. And so I have to go, and I'm going to let you guys continue the rest of the show. Michelle, I did send you some of the photos from my mom at the Grand Canyon. If anybody wants to see them, I don't know if you grab them. But okay, no worries. I can always, I'll post them. I'll post them later. Yeah. But I have to run because my husband and I are getting ready to go. And speaking of traveling, and so let's see if they let me back in.
Safe travels.
I don't even joke about it. It's so scary.
Oh my God. I know. Yeah. I know. Well, it's nuts. It's
I wanted to go to Banff this summer, and I'm like nervous to cross the Canadian border and come back. Like, I'm nervous.
It's insane.
And I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth.
I know. I can't believe
there are a lot of, you know, there's some Canadian people on this chat. And I have to say again, when I was at the Grand Canyon, one of the people on this tour was from Toronto. And I pulled her aside and I said, I didn't want to get partisan because, you know, you never know. So I said to her, I said, do you like all think we're nuts? And she was, you know, being Canadian, very nice. No, it's very complicated. I said, it's not really that complicated. You guys think we're nuts, right? And she was like, well, it's not expected. This is not what we kind of thought we were going to get with you guys. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, if she had not said that she was from Toronto, I would have thought she was from anywhere, you know, New Jersey, for all I know. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
And to me, just the notion that these people who are truly just the best, like I know we love the Canadians. We love you guys.
I'm actually flying the Air Canada through Montreal.
Oh, nice.
Coincidentally, that's my bonjour shirt today. And I'll be curious to see like kind of what the attitude is when we're in our layover, because and I chose to go through Canada as opposed to a European hub because it's just the Canadians are cool and it's better airports. And I didn't want to worry about, but then it's snowing up there. I got a snow alert. I was like,
it snowed at my parents' house a couple days ago and they live right in the border. My mom sent me a picture of like snow and I was like, terrible.
Send me the picture. So no, it looks like we'll be all right. But anyway.
Well, I'll tell you. Do you guys know, hey, bye. Safe travels. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with my friend Jason Stanley. He's on TV a lot. You guys know who I'm talking about?
Yep, I know.
Yeah. Bye, Tara. So Jason Stanley is a philosophy professor at Yale. And I've known him for probably 30 years. He is brilliant. He is an expert on fascism. He predicted all of this a decade ago and started writing a book called On Fascism. And along with Tim Snyder, they and one other professor from Yale have now decamped to the University of Toronto, to Toronto, I believe. He literally is leaving the country along with Tim Snyder, who a lot of you know was also
Tim Snyder is too.
Yeah. Both leaving Yale, going up to Canada, because they believe rightly that universities here are not going to be able to teach freely the way they used to. And they're not going to be able to express their views on the fascism that is here in this country already. freely, and they feel like they're going to be able to do that in Canada, which of course they are. So what's terrifying to me is the last time we had people fleeing universities for other countries was Nazi Germany in 1933. That's how Albert Einstein ended up in the United States at Princeton. That is how a lot of intellectuals at universities all over Germany left and came to the United States. And now the United States is exporting, not voluntarily, people to Canada, people to Europe. Clearly, there's going to be an influx in at least English-speaking institutions like Cambridge, like Oxford, certainly, and the Canadian universities, of all of these incredible thinkers, including Jason Stanley, including Tim Snyder. I mean, it's just horrifying to me. Think about what it takes to become a professor at Yale.
Yeah.
One of the finest institutions, storied institutions in this country, in the world, not even this country. And to give that up, Jason, I know him. He's got several young kids. He's got a wife, who's a doctor. I don't even know how she's going to practice up there. But picking up your entire family and moving to a different country because you are convinced, and rightly so, that you're not going to be able to speak freely about the issues that you've been focusing on for all your professional career. Like, what does that say about where we are?
I mean, and how quickly it's happened. I mean, that's the thing that really, it's the speed at which this is all collapsed. And it pisses me off because I feel like, I was trying to pull this thing from Canada and I want to play it here in a second. But no, I mean, the speed at which it's happened. And I feel frustrated because we all have been saying it. And to your point with your friend saying, he's been predicting this for a decade. Now, I always feel like I have to be a little careful because I used to work with a lot of former Republicans and, Tara's a little more conservative and this is her world. And I don't ever want to, insult the good ones. Right. But for those of us who've been on the other side of this, we've been watching this happen. I mean, let's be real. This has started with Reagan. A lot of his policies have brought us to now the rise of the Tea Party in 2010. That was Steve Bannon's whole thing. I mean, that's where the extremism, Sarah Palin really kind of was a green light for a lot of this as well, into the cruelty and the extremism that's happening on the right in this country. And
and we only need to look at recent examples because one of the most educated countries around, not for the entire population, but for, scientific research and whatever else, is Russia, or was Russia. And they had something called a brain drain during the Soviet days, but certainly accelerated once Putin started clamping down. And that's why their economy is in a shambles, not just because of Ukraine, but because the people who contribute to society and making it successful flee the country when they can't freely speak or freely behave as they want. And that's happening here. We are starting to experience a brain drain. And we were the refuge. My God, we had this, I don't want to get hokey, but every time I see the Statue of Liberty and I think about, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, I actually start tearing up. I took my son to the Statue of Liberty when he was 7 or 8. And it's interesting, if you live in New York, you never really go there. The way, I guess, like anything else, if you live in any city, you don't really do the touristy stuff. But he was.
Well, I've never been. I've lived here for 20 years. I've never been to the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island. I've never done it. I've
never been to the Empire State Building either. I went to the Statue of Liberty with him.
Right.
And I'm standing at the foot of the Statue of Liberty and I'm looking at that Emma Lazarus, the famous poem. And I started crying. I literally started, this is in I want to say this is like 2017. So he must have been like 5 maybe. And it was when Trump was first elected. And I started crying and he was really concerned. He's like, "Mommy, why are you crying?" And I said, "Oh, for all good reasons." I said, "This is such a beautiful sentiment as an immigrant myself. Like I just, I so live the sentiment." But this is like a mockery what's happening of that sentiment and of that statue. And it's not, everybody kind of laughed when that French politician said, "Give us back the Statue of Liberty."
I was like, yeah, you should take it back.
It's not funny. because everything that it stands for is no longer applicable. It's kind of like a mockery now.
Yeah. And I think about the people who must have come to port in New York in whatever year, 1910, 19,
Yeah.
and that's the first thing that they see coming into Ellis Island. Like, I can't even imagine what that must have felt like.
Oh, I know it because I spoke. Listen, I had a very, 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 very close cousin who was almost like a second mother to me. She was much older, so she was really like a second grandmother to me. But when we first came to the States, she had already been living here since 1941. And the reason she was living here since 1941 is she was born in France in 1931. And when she was 10 years old, actually earlier, 1939, the Nazis invade. They were fairly affluent industrialists. They were Jewish, so they were on a list that the Nazis, when they invaded Paris, they were on a list of Jews that had to immediately be arrested. So they fled, and by a miracle got a visa. Long story, which I'm not going to belabor here, but they in 1941 came here via ship through Portugal, I believe, and landed at Ellis Island, and then ultimately. Were processed through there. And I was so close to her. She sadly died about 10 years ago. But, I used to have that conversation with her all the time, that they were fleeing for their lives. Her father died as they were still in France, as they were on the run. So she was this little girl with just her mom and her uncle and her little sister. And just the absolute abject relief that she said that she experienced when she saw that New York harbor in front of her, and the Statue of Liberty, I guess, to the left of her, I think is there, maybe to the right, I don't know, as they're coming through. And that always stuck with me. But you thought about that in the concept of they were fleeing the Nazis, right? There were Jews who were fleeing the Nazis. And you kind of thought, well, my God, thank God that the world survived that. And thank God my family survived that. And to really think about the fact that I say this to her son all the time. I'm glad she's dead. I'm glad she's not around to see this. This would have killed her.
That's,
and it's, for her sake, I'm glad she's not around to see this.
Yeah.
I mean, truly. And I can't believe that I have lived long enough, and you have lived long enough, and everybody who's watching this have lived long enough for this country to turn into the very thing that we've been a refuge from for generations.
Yeah. And it's, as much as my family, on both sides of my family, I have the American Revolution, have been here for a long time. There's a lot of my family who hasn't. Like, my mom's comes from Irish immigrants on her mom's side and have not been here that long. And, we all come from somewhere here. There's, unless you're an indigenous person, like we all came from somewhere. And, that's the thing about this country that's so great. And that's the thing that makes our relationships with Canada and Mexico so great, is that, we all have this shared, idea of what it is to be free and to live free. And the fact that we are turning our back not only on our own people, but the people who are to the north and south of us. Like, I was watching another documentary, and I'm actually putting together a list of documentaries, that we're going to publish from Seneca Project that I think are worth watching. And one of them is about people who survived the Holocaust. And this older woman said, people they ask others, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you leave? And we're experiencing this right now, I understand why people didn't leave, because, and she said the same thing. She said, you'd see something in the newspaper, somebody did something crazy. You just think, oh, it's Hitler. They're just nuts or whatever. You don't actually think it's going to happen. And you just keep moving the goalpost to what you're able to tolerate until it's too late. And by the time you're ready to go, it's too late. And like, again, I can't even believe I'm even saying this stuff out loud, but it's, my husband works for a European company who has offices all over the world. And I've said to him, like, I don't want to leave, but God, if we had to, I mean, like, could you work from the London office or something? Because, it's not easy to immigrate to other countries. It's
it's quietly passing by, ask a question, Julia, how do we get notified of your emergency Substack videos? Follow me and Michelle and whoever else on Substack. I'm at Salty Politics on Substack, and we notify you all the time. We actually send a scheduling thing out saying that we're going to go live on whatever subject we're going to go live with in advance. So you'll be notified of it, and you'll get an email and you can join. So thank you for that question. Follow me at Salty Politics. Follow Michelle at Your Michelle Kinney on Salty Politics.
Something like that. I'm not going to have as much stuff there, but definitely follow Julie, follow Tara, Jojo.
Yeah, we're all on Substack. That's actually where we do most of our writing. So I would recommend that everybody here, if you're not already following us on Substack, please do, because this is just a small part of what we do every week. Most of us, I produce content every day. I think Jojo does as well. Tara does it many times a week. So please subscribe to us, and you will see all the emergency Substack lives that you can, and many more that are not emergency, because we do a lot of Substack. We do a lot of Substack. I do at least a lot of Substack lives. I know Joe does as well.
And your show on Thursdays with Olga.
I do a show with Olga Lautman on Thursdays that focuses specifically on foreign policy. And if everybody here
it's so good.
Yeah, Olga Lautman, for the people who don't know her, if you're also following somebody on Substack, follow her as well. She runs something called the Trump Tyranny Tracker. And every single day she has a list of all the tyrannical new things that Trump does. It is, I think it's a must read. It's depressing as hell. But if you want to know all the new outrages of every single day, follow her. She also has a Substack called Russia Unmasked. For those people who are interested in foreign policy. And that's what she and I talk about every Thursday, basically about foreign policy, which actually is what I have my graduate degree in. And she is just an expert on all things Russia and what he's doing in Ukraine, he being Vladimir Putin. So strongly recommend that you join us on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern for that show.
Incredibly informative. And, just to bring it back to the, immigration and disappearing people and whatnot. I saw something last night that Ken Klippenstein, who can sometimes be, controversial, reported on a leaked document out of the State Department that said that they were keeping a list of students who were here on a visa, and they were monitoring everyone's social media, to see if they were saying anything against the United States government. And if they were to be deemed terrorists. And that was yesterday. I saw that. So, I don't have it with me. Otherwise I'd post it.
And I got to say, I forgot who said this, but it was so stupid. Talking about these disappearances where they're grabbing people off the streets who have tattoos and automatically assuming those tattoos are what's the gang trend, whatever gang that they're claiming everybody is, and shipping them off to El Salvador, where Kristi Noem is doing basically prison porn, standing in front of these people or locked up
concentration camp theater,
where she's locked, standing in front. I mean, this is, and you have people in social media, these crazy MAGA people are like, well, of course you want terrorists deported. Well, how do you know they're terrorists, by the way? How do you know it's not you next? Because all of you people also have tattoos, I assume, of some sort. And a lot of people do. I'm probably one of the very few people who doesn't have a tattoo, but most people. Okay, so we're probably the only two people in America who don't have tattoos. A lot of other people do. And now you have to worry about what that tattoo is misconstrued as.
Yeah.
Without any due process, sent abroad to a notorious prison run by a despotic psychopath who is the president of El Salvador.
Yep.
And good luck getting back here, or good luck getting released from there, period. I mean, what the hell is going on? And everybody's like, oh, the courts will take care of this. By the time the courts get around to this,
you could be dead.
You could be dead. God knows what they're doing. And she's going down there. I mean, when the tribunal comes, she needs to be first.
Oh,
he's going to pardon her. Obviously, if Donald Trump ever leaves, and P.S., I don't believe he ever will. But if by some miracle of God, Donald Trump leaves the White House, he will pardon his entire cabinet and they will not be prosecuted for it. And I'm telling you right now, I don't care how it gets done. I don't care if it's in the Constitution. First of all, the presidential pardon, I thought from day one we should overturn that immediately. There should be a constitutional amendment to get rid of that, because there's no reason on earth why any one person has the ability to overrule a jury. I think it's stupid. It's the prerogative of kings. It's not something that happens in a democratic society. But listen, I don't know what the accountability for these people is if he pardons them, but there's got to be something.
There has to be something. I like make an exception, or maybe it's international courts come and scoop them up, like something.
I mean, we're not, that's the problem. We don't abide by the, we're not part of the Hague Convention, but she is violating the Geneva Convention.
Right.
By doing this. She's violating the Geneva Convention.
Mm.
And
So
I
awful.
don't know that I've ever seen pictures of Nazis in front of concentration camps. Like they kind of at least tried to have no fingerprints on this. This woman is proudly, do you hear my dog? Kind of.
Yeah, I was like, what was that? I was like, stomach growling.
That's my dog. That's Hagrid. But here, I'll show you. I don't know if you can see him. Can you see him?
Oh,
but these people deserve, they deserve to be in prison for the rest. She deserves to be in a supermax prison for what she did.
Yes, I agree. I'm trying to find, I think I've got the video here.
With her stupid $50,000 Rolex, somebody explained explain to me how the governor of South Dakota has the ability to afford a $50,000 Rolex.
Right.
Today and visiting this facility. And first of all, I want to thank El Salvador and their partnership with the United States of America to bring our terrorists here and to incarcerate them and have consequences for the violence that they have perpetuated in our communities. I also want everybody to know, if you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not.
Okay, I can't even watch any more of it because it's so upsetting. But I saw on TikTok that they were like, do you notice the people behind her kind of seem like they've done this before, like having to stand there and pose? And they said it's because they have. And then this TikTok creator showed a montage of all of these right-wing podcasters and influencers that they have allowed to go into this prison and do similar content in front of these prisoners, where they are told to stand there while someone stands on the other side of the bars and does these little videos. I mean, it's just, and I look at her and her pillow face full of filler and whatever else. And, and the walking hypocrisy that she is. I mean, the woman of family values and everything who, had an affair with Corey Lewandowski, and like everything about her is just, and every time she goes somewhere, she's in some little costume. She's always wearing a costume, whether it, if she's out,
her little baseball hat.
She's got a cowboy hat on, because it's all happening on TV. It's all a show. It's like the Hunger Games. To Tara's like, it's like the Hunger Games.
It's 100% like the Hunger Games. And what's interesting about her is, those kids who like rip wings off of flies, and then they're kind of identified early on as like, you could be a psychopath, right?
Yeah.
If you look at Jeffrey Dahmer, I don't know about him personally, but if you look at all these serial killers, like
people who hurt animals, like
it kind of begins early. She hurt animals.
Yeah.
She put a bullet in her puppy.
And then wrote about it.
Like it was that disqualifies you from day one. Of course she's going down to El Salvador and treating people like they're cattle.
Mm-hmm.
I saw those pictures of those people in cages. You know what it reminded me of? Cattle cars.
Yeah.
The cattle cars that would go east on railroad tracks that would stop at Birkenau.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that reminded me of.
Yep. And there's side by sides of even prisoners in these camps back in 1938, 40, 41, that, sorry, sirens, always something happening outside. That you could hold them up, the two of them together. And I mean, the similarities of what we're doing now and the visual of what was happening then and the photographs that documented that time. I mean, history is repeating.
And as far as I am concerned, not one of these people, if they were deported from the United States down there, should be there, because regardless of whether they're in a gang or not, that has not been proven. They have had zero due process. Right. Zero due process. And in this country, you are innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
And that applies to everybody, including people who are not here legally.
Right. Habeas
So
corpus.
says, again, Antonin Scalia. This is not some wide-eyed liberal view. The most conservative justice on the court at a particular period of time, who is the inspiration to all of these other right-wing thinkers, judicial thinkers, said this. And the fact that they just don't give a rat's ass, and we're sitting here thinking, oh, is it the court? What's the court going to do? What's the court going to do? File all the emergency injunctions you want. Those people are still down there.
Yep.
And every day that goes by, they're dying slowly down there.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure being tortured or starved or,
Yeah, working in
disease.
I mean, this is not even. And by the way, who the hell are you to ship them off to El Salvador, where most of them are not from? Like, you want to repatriate them back to their country.
Right.
I don't support it, but okay. Like, I see the rationale.
Right. But to take them to a third party country and lock them up in a horribly violent and dangerous prison for God knows how long, to your point, with no due process, is just.
How are they subjected to El Salvadorian justice? Like, how are they, like, under what scenario is somebody from Venezuela subjected to El Salvadorian justice? So you're telling me that if I got scooped up, I could be sent to, I don't know, Canada for that matter, and
Right.
subject to Canadian justice based on what?
Right.
Based on what? I've never broken the laws of the Commonwealth, of any Commonwealth country. As far as I know.
Right. I mean,
why would I be in Canada?
And that's where I start to wonder, Julie. I mean, especially since our country has been so unkind to refugees in recent history, if there will be a point at which other countries who were previously friendly to us will allow refugees from the United States. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question, because this country sometimes allowed refugees in. We all remember, maybe most of us don't remember, but I certainly remember the history of the St. Louis. If anybody here is not familiar, these were Germans,
Yes.
German Jews who fled to the United States, went to, I believe it was Mexico, couldn't land in Mexico. The St. Louis came to the United States, and Roosevelt, this is a stain on his legacy, the Roosevelt administration would not allow them in and send them back. And some of them were taken in by other countries, but a lot of them died. A lot of them died in the concentration camps. And after having been docked off the coast of the United States, desperately trying to get in, knowing at that point what fate awaited them back in Germany.
Yeah.
And for everybody who thinks that this is an exaggeration, and for anybody who thinks, well, it's not going to get that bad here, I keep saying, that's what a lot of Jews said in 1933. Oh, it can't be that bad. It's not going to get that bad. Look, do I think we're going to have concentration camps and gas chambers here? I don't. Do I think it's going to be similar to what is happening in Russia right now, where you better not say a goddamn word, and if you do, you're going to the gulag for 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
You can't express support for Ukraine. You can't express support for, you can't call it a war. If you call it a war, not a special military operation, you're going to the gulag. I mean, the policing of language is so strong in Russia right now. Nobody's going to, a gas chamber, but you're living in an increasingly totalitarian society, where you cannot criticize anything.
Right, where people are going to start falling out of windows. I mean, I joked about it, but I was like, it's actually not funny anymore. Between the poisoning and that, it's,
And so the question is, that's what's happening here, because if you put it all together, they started with the people who are not here, as they say, legally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they started with literally kidnapping women off the streets of Somerville, Massachusetts, kidnapping them at points of entry in the United States who are here legally, like this Russian Harvard researcher. Now they're being sent this guy at Columbia, this pro-Palestinian person who, again, you don't have to agree with anything he says. I don't, to understand that he received zero due process. So it started with people who were here illegally or, who are undocumented. Then it continued on to people who were here legally and resident aliens who had green cards.
Mm-hmm.
married in some cases to American citizens, as this guy was at Columbia. And I'm telling you, mark my words, this is next. The naturalized citizens. The naturalized citizens.
God, I hope not.
It's coming. And the whole point is to get people to just shut up, right?
Yep.
And if you shut up and you don't criticize, then that's not going to happen to you. But does the First Amendment not apply? Like, and the courts are sitting here taking their sweet time, putting out injunctions. And I get that the wheels of justice move very slowly, but like this is an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And the Supreme Court acted very, very quickly when it thought that Donald Trump
was going to take their,
like they know how to act quickly, and they also know how to act very slowly when they want to.
Yep.
I mean, they slow walked Trump's case so late that basically he couldn't be prosecuted. And so that's what's going to happen. They're going to slow walk this, and these people are going to be rotting in prison. And the person responsible, who I hope to God people understand, is a man named Justice John Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
Because John Roberts effectively told Donald Trump that he is king because he wrote the opinion in Trump versus United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that man does not have a moment's peace. Because the leopard is going to eat his face. Now he's putting out these statements basically saying, oh, you really should be critical of judges, and, impeachment's not the right place it's not the right forum. If you disagree with a judge's decision, you have to appeal. You don't impeach. Really? F you, John Roberts. Sorry, actually, Dad, excuse me. Fuck you, John Roberts. Because the truth of the matter is that John Roberts did this. He gave impunity to this lawless president to act lawlessly, knowing full well that there will be no consequences. And everybody who does this for Trump, whether it's Pete Hegseth handing out attack plans or on Signal, whether it's Steve Witkoff, who admitted, oh, no, wait a second, don't worry about it. I know that I was in Moscow meeting with Vladimir Putin when the name of a clandestine CIA officer was sent to me on Signal. But don't worry, I didn't take that cell phone with me to Moscow. I'm not that stupid. That was on my private cell phone.
It was on my personal phone.
My personal phone back in the United States. If I'm sitting there in the GRU, if I'm sitting there in the Kremlin, I'm like, okay, good to know. Good to know. So now you have a personal cell phone. It takes us 2.2 seconds to hack into that. Less probably. What do they think? Somebody can't hack into your stupid Apple iPhone?
Right.
I mean, whether it's Elon Musk stealing all of our personal data, like our social security numbers,
which I think is the point of all this. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Whether it's Kristi Noem going down to El Salvador and doing prison porn.
Mm-hmm.
Like any of this all of it is going to be pardoned by a president who John Roberts said is not ever going to be held criminally accountable. So therefore, he's going to be okay, and they're all going to be okay. And you know who's going to be screwed? Everybody else.
And I just saw this. Should we be afraid to do social media posts? No,
we're not going to stop speaking up. We're not going to stop speaking up.
No way. I mean, it goes to Timothy Snyder's first point in his book is do not obey in advance.
Yeah. So
continue to keep speaking your mind. Do it publicly. I'm sure as hell not going to stop. My grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers didn't fight in wars for the last 250 years in this country for me to sit here and be silent. So I say, you can listen. Am I a little freaked out? Of course, I would be lying if I wasn't. This is scary stuff. But until it's over, we're still in it. I'm going to go down swinging. So,
yeah. I mean, you guys, we're in the United States. Mm-hmm. This country stands for something.
Yep.
Right? Just because a autocrat and a wannabe dictator now runs our country doesn't mean that we're not still part of a country that stands for something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean,
exactly.
Not to get hokey, but we are the land of the free and the home of the brave, right? Like, so we are meant to be free and we are instructed to be brave.
Yep. July 4th is going to be weird this year. It's going to be really weird. It's going to be a weird feeling. It's going to be weird to celebrate. You know, it's just, again, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, next year is the 250th anniversary of this country.
Right.
You know, the jingoism is going to be on full display. Military, Trump's going to get his military parade down Pennsylvania Avenue. Which is
yeah. There's going to be tanks. It's going to be very North Korea.
Yep.
And the thing that I talk about with Tara often and my friends, and we talked to Marcus Flowers about this too when he came on our show, The Stakes at the Seneca Project.
Explain who Marcus Flowers is for people who don't know. He ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah. He ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene. He now runs a PAC called Hold the Line, doing work for veterans and also giving money to people to run for office. So I talked to him and I asked him, what do you think about patriotism right now? It's a difficult thing because for a long time, I think personally, since the Iraq war after 9/11, probably when the right kind of went yeehaw with the patriotism, or it felt kind of dark and sinister. And I think that the left kind of projected that. And that's kind of been the split and the divide. And it became that Democrats weren't as patriotic, which I don't think is true. I just don't think they were flying the symbolism in their lives probably as much as we should have been. And we all have to remind ourselves that the flag belongs to us as well. This country belongs to us as well. But there is this kind of ickiness because of what our country is doing to other countries and to our own people that, you know, is flying the flag outside my house right now, condoning that. I don't know. It's very complicated. It's very complicated. But at the same time, you don't want to surrender our flag and our country and our patriotism to the bad guys.
I fly it. You know what? When we first, so we have a house, we live in New York right now. We have a house in the country also that we spend weekends which is where I am right now. Mm-hmm. When we first bought this house, we bought it from people who were flying the flag. Mm. And I said to my husband, I was like, oh, take this down. This is so jingoistic. This is so whatever.
Right.
He said something really, really smart. He goes, we are not taking this flag down because we're not surrendering this flag to the Trumpers.
Right.
Like we're not. We're going to fly this flag because it belongs to us just as much as it belongs to the Trumpers. And I was like, you know what? That's a great point. He made an excellent point. So we fly it very proudly. We actually fly two because we have one on one side and one on the other. And I'm glad he convinced me of that because my initial reaction was to roll my eyes and be like, oh, this bullshit made up patriotism. But he's right. Yeah. And I think part of the reason that the Democrats, I think in some ways struggle to connect with a lot of parts of the country is that we have the attitude that I had, which is like, oh, you know, America, every time you get patriotic, you start.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, like, we have a lot to be proud of in this country. We sat there and trashed our history for a long time on the show today. But the truth of the matter is, you know, we still are, for a good reason, the greatest country in the world. We have stains on our country, slavery being one that they're trying to eradicate right now. I just mentioned St. Louis and other. There's, you know, the Tulsa massacre Tara mentioned.
The Japanese internment camps.
There's a lot. Like, you know, there's a lot. There's a lot. Mm-hmm. But every other country has them too. Yep. And the difference is that when you go to Germany, and we went to Germany a couple of years ago, and my husband and I did the Munich tour. And we actually found a tour that would give us kind of the Nazi tour of Munich, which is hard to find. And it was because I think they in their minds think are these like Nazi sympathizers who want to kind of worship at the shrine of where all of this happened. And we convinced them, no, in fact, we are quite the opposite of that. We just want to see the history that took place here. Mm-hmm. But they acknowledge it. Like the Germans pay to this day. My aunt is getting reparations from the German government because she was born during World War II and had to flee into evacuation as a Jew. And so, I know she's in her late 80s now, but she still has reparations from the German government. My grandmother, until she died, had reparations from the German government. So, and they fully acknowledge the stain of their history. Mm-hmm. The French fully acknowledge the stain of their history in Northern Africa. That happened very recently in the 50s and the 60s. Mm-hmm. The Brits certainly acknowledge their imperialist history. Why don't we acknowledge that there are parts of our history that are really dark and that we've learned from? It doesn't make us bad. It makes us better.
I don't understand that. I've never been able to understand like the lack of acknowledgement, especially from the Stars and Bars folks in the South who don't want to talk about it, yet want to fly the Confederate flag, which represents all of those things. It's very, very puzzling to me, because it's like a whole part of the country that just never got over the Civil War. It's just, and I think about this, Ben Affleck, when Ben Affleck was on Finding Your Roots. If you don't know Finding Your Roots, it's a show on PBS, hosted by Henry Louis Gates Jr., that helps people, specifically celebrities or members of government, notable people, do their family trees and family history. And in Ben Affleck's family, they found slave ownership. And he was so upset about it that he told the show, please remove this from the broadcast. And they were like, well, we're journalism. Like, this is journalism. Like, we can't do that. And he was basically like, do it, do it, do it. So when the broadcast came, they omitted it. And then it got leaked that they had omitted it. And it was a big controversy because Ben Affleck was, you can't deny this part of your history. And unfortunately, the show lost some credibility for a while. I still watch it. I think it's great. But I'm like, grow up.
Why do you take ownership of that?
I like, grow up. Like, why wouldn't you say to yourself, I'm Ben Affleck, look what I've been able to do with my life. And I mean, what a contrast who the person that I am living in this country, that I don't believe in these things. And I've tried to make this country better. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I was just like, what a little bitch, like, grow up.
Well, Ben Affleck is a little bitch on so many different levels. I'm so not a fan of Ben Affleck.
Me neither. I've also heard many stories about him, but I won't go there today.
Oh, I've heard many stories about him too. I know somebody who dated him.
Yeah. Like, if you're a bartender in New York City, like during a certain period of time and you're a woman, you probably have heard things.
Yeah. No, this woman legit dated him, and she's got some stories. Like, Ben Affleck. No good.
Yeah, no way. But yeah, I mean, like, trying to hide that history, it's just, and also like trying this part about Canada, right? This rhetoric about Canada right now, like they owe us, and they've never done anything for us. Excuse me. First of all, Canada stormed the beaches with us in Normandy. Canada went to Iraq and Afghanistan. Their people died. Their soldiers died right along.
For us, they attacked us in 9/11, not Toronto. They flew into the World Trade Center in New York, not into some government building in Ottawa.
Right, exactly. And I would love to show this video that the Canadian government put out. Mark Carney, who's the new prime minister, put this out. And actually, like, I got choked up watching it. It's really good. And I think it's a testament to how video content like this can be really effective in narrative setting and communication. So I'm just going to load this in really quick. Have you seen this yet?
No. I'm dying to see it.
All right, why did it go? Hold on. Let me try this again. But yeah, I mean, it brings up the point of after 9/11, I don't know if you remember the plane that diverted and landed in Gander. Right. Yeah. Why is this not loading? Let me try one more thing here. Let me do this. And there's actually a musical called Come From Away that is about this. It's very emotional. It's a beautiful show. I hope if it comes to a town near you, you'll go see it. I don't know why my computer is I need a new computer. I don't know why it's not doing this, but let me try one more time because I really think it's worth watching. If not, I'll put it in the chat. Let me try this here.
Gander à Terre-Neuve a beau être loin de New York.
No, this is French. Yeah, the one that I had is in English. I had both of them. But anyways, I guess my point being, it's like we're trying to erase our history and create this other reality that just doesn't.
Lights after the darkness of 9/11 came from a remote town in eastern Canada, and that light is still shining.
I had an amazing day in Gander. You know what touched me the most? I mean, many aspects. Every aspect of that story is amazing, and the individual acts of kindness, how people came together, how many of the passengers responded themselves. Many of the passengers sort of stepping aside, not taking the mats offered, saying there's others who were more in need. But I think one of the things that touched me the most is Diane does some talks to schools here in Canada, around North America, And she showed me a thank you card she received from a young girl called Ellie. And it said, at the end, it said, "Your kindness motivates me to be more kind." And, you know, it's a real lesson. You know, we're kind, or the people of Gander have been kind, and they were kind because for kindness' sake. But that lesson is one that we all can take about kindness, and kindness begets kindness. Canadians are compassionate people. They're generous.
This actually isn't the one that I thought it was. There's another one. I'll put it in. I'll put it in the description after this. But it's a montage of all the times that Canada has come to our rescue. And in addition to this, the small tiny town Gander in Newfoundland that took all these people in, there wasn't room for all of these Americans and folks from other countries on September 11th. And so the Canadians in Gander took in people into their homes, and they all took care of each other. And it really shows, you know, the compassionate and kind nature of Canadians, to the Prime Minister's point. And in this thing also, I was reminded about the hostages in Iran that the Canadians helped bring back. They worked with American intelligence. I mean, we found out later. Yeah, speaking of Ben Affleck, the Argo story, how the Canadians helped us bring our people back. I mean, there's just so many instances in history where they've come to our aid, and for them again to try to rewrite this history when Canadians have been nothing but wonderful and kind and helpful to us. You know, it really disgusts me.
Yeah, you know, somebody said here, respect to the massive protests in Turkey and Budapest, both beautiful places. So Erdogan, who's the increasingly prime minister of Turkey or president of Turkey, but increasingly the dictator of Turkey, just imprisoned his opposition leader, who might have beaten him in the election. Literally, this would be like Donald Trump imprisoning whoever runs against him for a third term, because we know Donald Trump is going to either run for a third term or just never leave after a second term.
Yeah, there just won't be an election.
Yeah. So, and Turkey, certainly with what's happening with Viktor Orban, increasingly becoming autocratic too. Where are the protests here?
Yeah,
because I don't understand what's happening. Like, what are people?
There are some, and they're just not being covered. But yes,
they're not being covered. But you have massive protests in Istanbul, and you have massive protests in Budapest. And what I don't understand is, after people are snatched off the streets by masked people, not in uniform, by the way, but randos who are wearing masks, who identify themselves as, I guess, being from ICE or Homeland Security, wherever they identify themselves from, the reality is, how do you know they are? Like, would you even?
Right.
But are shuffled into the back of some sort of transport and taken wherever they're taken, where their family can't track them down for weeks sometimes. Or they're either shipped off to El Salvador or to Guantanamo or to Louisiana or wherever the hell they're disappeared to. Why are we not? I see that somebody said Rachel Maddow showed the protests. That's great. But where are the massive protests about this? Like, what are people waiting for? Are people just sitting here scared because they think that it's going to just declare martial law?
Or I think that people, you know, because we've been dealing with this for the last 10 years, and I think especially in 2017, 2018, there were massive protests. What I am hearing from my circles is the fatigue and the, not just I'm tired, I don't want to do it, or like, what's the point? Nothing's going to matter, because we've been trying to protest this guy and resist against this guy, and all that happened is he just was put back in office. And so, like, why would I even do this? Nothing matters. And that's really what I'm hearing, at least from my friends and my feeds. And that's, you know, it couldn't be further from the truth. We have to, you know?
Yeah. Rosie said, who are the masked people who kidnapped and unmarked cars, the students that were on visa? Yeah. I mean, if you watch that video of that young woman from Turkey who was approached in Somerville, Massachusetts, she's a graduate student at Tufts. She was approached by, I don't know, 4 or 5 people wearing just normal, you know, I guess COVID type masks, and shoved into the back of a car, and that's it.
Yeah, who's to say, like, you know, if you really wanted to kidnap someone and you weren't ICE, you could probably just do that. And I mean, that's the thing that's so crazy about it. There's no proof, there's no warrant, there's no anything. They just say, get in my car,
Get in my
which
car.
is terrifying.
And then you have Marco Rubio, who I keep calling, Marco von Ribbentrop, standing up there, or Joaquin von Rubio, whichever you prefer, standing up there basically saying, well, yes, I ordered this because if you're here on a green card and you don't, you oppose our government, then you shouldn't be here and you deserve to be deported. Like what?
Yeah.
Based on what? Based on what, Marco Rubio? You complete an utter buffoon whose own family came here.
Right. Whose own family fled Cuba. I mean, really? Are you serious?
And Marco Rubio was able to come here because we have something called the wet foot, dry foot policy, where I guess if you set one foot in this country, if you're Cuban, you can stay. So Congratulations, you hit the lucky sperm club, Marco Rubio, in that you were born in Cuba and not in Guatemala.
Right.
Or El Salvador.
Right.
Or Venezuela or Mexico. Right. I hit the jackpot. I was able to come here, same thing, because I was born in the Soviet Union, and there's a program back when I was coming here where if you're a Soviet Jew, you could come here and you could get a green card, and that was that. Right? But if I had been born anywhere else, if I had been born in Mexico, I wouldn't have. So I mean, appreciate your own background and what you have, and stop being a complete and utter asshole.
Right.
Right? Because Marco Rubio sure as hell criticized this government extensively when Barack Obama was president.
Extensively.
And Joe Biden was president. So does that apply to him too? Does that apply to his family? Does that apply to Ted Cruz's family? His father came here.
Yeah.
So do we deport Ted Cruz's dad because he criticizes this country when a Democrat's in power?
Right. This is a good point too. I want to know where Eric Prince is. Now, if you don't know who Eric Prince is, his sister is Betsy DeVos, who was Secretary of Education in the last Trump administration. But Eric Prince is sort of an evil guy who operates in the shadows. And he owned and ran Blackwater, which was an kind of off-books military apparatus that went to Iraq and was not beholden to, I think, laws, really. They were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Paramilitary, right? And they had an office in Midtown Manhattan, and Blackwater has now rebranded and changed the name of the company. And they're the ones that are providing security, right? In these government buildings where Doge is going in and ransacking the offices. When the members of Congress tried to go into those buildings and there were security guards there, I forget the name of it off the top of my head. I don't remember, but the name of that company is what Blackwater was.
Yeah, they're the brown shirts. They're the muscle. They're Elon Musk brown shirts. Right. All right. On that note, I have got to go take care of this situation.
I know. I've been putting mine off.
I got to look at my hair colored. So I got to run.
I'm going to the Yankees game today. So.
Oh, nice. Who are they playing?
Brewers.
Nice.
It's going to be 80 degrees today. So I'm very
nice.
Excited.
Milwaukee, you're going down because the Yankees are the bomb. We're both Yankee fans here. If you want to hear more from me, if you're not sick of me after an hour and a half of this, I will be on Ayman Alamuddin's show tonight at about 7:15 on MSNBC for a few segments, talking more about some of the stuff that we talked about today. If you want to hear more from Tara and Michelle, you could watch them on The Stakes. Their Seneca Project show. What time is it? 7 p.m. 7:30?
7:30 on Thursdays.
On Thursdays. If you want to hear more from all of us, Jojo, Tara, Michelle, and me, you could watch us at noon on Wednesdays on Over It, where we will tell you what we're over every single week. There's a cornucopia of things to talk about what we're over.
Right.
Yes, and to everybody who's joined us and sent all these wonderful comments in about Becca Balint, the congresswoman from Vermont. It was so to have her. She is a fighter. That woman is what the rest of the Democratic Party in Washington needs to emulate. If you want to watch me and Ogle Outman, as we talked about, 11 o'clock on Thursdays. I also am potentially going to do a Substack Live with Oliver Darcy, who, if you guys don't subscribe to his newsletter, he's writing the best newsletter on media around, formerly at CNN, now completely taking apart the legacy media every day. He's phenomenal. So I will let you guys know when that's going to happen, hopefully this coming week. And so that's a lot. And of course, if you want to hear more from all of us every day, you can subscribe to our Substacks. Mine is Salty Politics. Michelle Kinney is Michelle Kinney. Tara's is what's Tara's?
Uncompromised,
Uncompromised with Tara Setmayer. And JoJo is Are You Effing Kidding Me? Which I'm sure all of you know because she's awesome and hilarious. All right, everybody, have a wonderful Saturday. If you're on the East Coast, enjoy the warm weather. Michelle, have a few beers for me at the Yankee game while I'm sitting there buffering for 5 hours with this hair color in my head. Bye, everybody. See ya.
Bye, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
weekend.